Since the 1990s, Bolliger and Mabillard, or B&M for short, has become one of the most universally loved roller coaster manufacturers. They have models which are but they also have models which pretty much everyone can get behind. Combine this with their perfect track record and extremely high reliability, and you know that B&M is one of the most popular roller coaster manufacturers on the planet. One of the company's most popular models is the Dive Machine. 15 of these coasters have been built all around the world. The first to open was Oblivion at Alton Towers. Since Oblivion in 1998, B&M's Dive Machine has been built consistently around the world. I've only been on one of these coasters, and it's Valravn at Cedar Point. Valravn opened in 2016 as the park's 17th roller coaster. Lots of people love Valravn for its thrilling drop and fun inversions, while there are some people who don't like this coaster because of its rattle and lack of force. But what do I think of Valravn? Let's find out. When Valravn opened in 2016, it was the tallest, fastest, and longest dive coaster on the planet. The records for fastest and longest have since been taken by Yukon Striker at Canada's Wonderland in 2019. Valravn still holds the height record at 223 feet tall, which is tied with Yukon Striker. Valravn, like I said, stands 223 feet tall, travels 75 miles per hour, has a 214-foot 90-degree drop, has a length of 3,415 feet, and features 3 inversions. Valravn, along with Gatekeeper and Raptor, is one of the first coasters you see when entering the park. This ride is beautiful with its massive drop, slick color scheme, and, circles, I guess. Valravn's height definitely contributes to its beauty. Watching the train hang at the top for a couple of seconds, then plummet over 200 feet to the ground, is a really cool experience. That feeling while you're on the ride is even better. The layout on Valravn is pretty typical of a dive coaster. It's almost 3,500 feet long, which sounds like quite a bit, but with the speed and height, the ride is actually pretty short in duration. I don't really mind the shortness for some reason. Another thing is the speed. Valravn technically goes 75 miles per hour, but the amount of time you spend going that speed is very minimal. After the drop, you go through an Immelman, and then after that, you hit the mid-course, killing all of your speed. The drop off the mid-course is still good, but it kind of sucks how much speed you lose after only a couple seconds. I'll give Valravn an 8.5 out of 10 for its stats. Sure, it's the tallest dive coaster in the world, and sure, it broke lots of records when it opened, but it's still short in duration, and you lose a lot of your speed after the first element. Some B&M roller coasters are notorious for having a rattle, and Valravn is no exception to this. I'll be honest, I was not expecting it going in. But when we hit the bottom of the first drop, the train began to rattle quite a bit, but as soon as we went up into the Immelman, the rattle stopped. This is pretty consistent throughout the ride. The train will only rattle when there is a somewhat high amount of G-force. Personally, the B&M rattle doesn't bother me that much. It didn't bother me in the back row on Gatekeeper, and it doesn't really bother me on Valravn. All the best parts of Valravn don't seem to be affected by the rattle, like the Immelman, the drop, and the 0G roll, as none of these elements pull any positive Gs. Valravn gets a 9 out of 10 for its smoothness. Most parts of the ride are smooth, but if you're pulling any positive Gs, the train will rattle quite a bit. Personally, I think Valravn has pretty good pacing. Yeah, you do go slow at the top of most elements, but that's exactly what a dive coaster should do. They have moments of high speeds and positives, but they also have big floaty inversions with some good hang time, and Valravn uses this perfectly. I think dive coasters are pretty consistent with their pacing. I've never seen one haul, but I've never seen one run slow. I'll give Valravn a 9.5 out of 10 for its pacing. It seems to run pretty standard for a dive coaster. I just wish the mid-course didn't slow you down that much. B&M seems to be a pretty polarizing company when it comes to positive and negative Gs. They have that, which pulls 0 forces at all, but they also have coasters like Montu and Raptor, which are packed with crazy intense turns and inversions. I think Valravn falls somewhere in the middle of this. There are some decently intense moments, like the bottom of the first drop and the turn up into the mid-course, but the rest of the ride is pretty bland. and if I were to compare the forces on Valravn to any other B&M, I'd compare it to the Superman Ultimate Flight clones. These rides have one outstanding moment, but everything else after that is just turns and an inversion. Valravn is like this with its two good back-to-back moments, but then after the mid-course, it's really not that good. For having two good moments of intensity though, I will give Valravn a 7 out of 10 for forces. I think the pull-out of the first drop and the turn into the mid-course brake run sort of carry the ride, but the rest of the layout is kind of useless. Originally, the B&M Dive Coaster featured the over-the-shoulder restraints that are found on all of the company's older looping coasters. That includes the floorless coaster, the inverted coaster, the sit-down coaster, and of course the dive coaster. But as B&M has gone on to develop new trains and restraints for their coasters in the last 10 years, they have switched to vest restraints. Valravn features these vest restraints. These are hated by many for being uncomfortable and putting a large amount of pressure on your chest. You may have seen my review of Gatekeeper at Cedar Point, the B&M wing coaster. In that review, I said that I didn't mind the vests on that coaster. The thing is, these restraints vary from ride to ride. They may not have been bad on Gatekeeper, but on Valravn, I felt the pressure on my chest pretty hard. I think the difference in these two rides is since there is much more positive force on Valravn than Gatekeeper, the restraint came down much more. This is kind of sad because a lot of the best parts of this coaster exert some sort of positive force. Once you hit the brake run, the vest will be pretty tight on your chest, and you're stuck there until they dispatch the next train, which may take a while. The vest restraints are not good in my opinion, and I found them to get increasingly more uncomfortable as the ride went on. I give Valravn a 4.5 out of 10 for its restraints. The only problem is how tight they got, and that can take away from the ride experience. Valravn's final average score is 7.7 out of 10. Despite the bad restraints and short layout, Valravn is still one of my favorite B&M coasters. I enjoyed the drop on it very much, and all of the other inversions were pretty good. Based on my experiences with Valravn, I would like to ride another dive coaster. I'm curious to see what a dive coaster with the old restraints is like, such as Griffin or Sheikra at the Busch Gardens parks. Have you been on a dive coaster? If you have, tell me in the comments which is your favorite. And since you've made it this far in the video, consider subscribing and dropping a like, as it would be greatly appreciated. Anyways, this is CT Coasters, signing off.